Good afternoon. Romantic poetry. Romantic poetry. While seeing, we have to see some of the points. They are poetry is the soul of Romantic period. It was artistic, literary, musical, and intellectual movement originated in Europe towards end of 18th century. It involved a reaction against prevailing Enlightenment ideas of the 18th century and lasted approximately from 1800 to 1850. In early 19th century England, the poet William Wordsworth defined his and Samuel Taylor Coleridge's innovative poetry in his preface to lyrical ballads. Uh, Then, what makes romantic poetry? Romantic poetry values imagination, individualism, nature, and childhood. These poems were often written to inspire social change or an appreciation of the natural world. Some key romantic ideas include a focus on the power of nature, imagination, revolution, the world of childhood, and the lives of people marginalized in society. Scholars say that the Romantic period began with the publishing of lyrical ballad. It was published in 1798 by William Wordsworth and Samuel T. Coleridge. William Wordsworth was one of the founders of English Romanticism and one its most central figures and important intellects. In English literature, the key figures of Romantic movement are considered to be the group of poets which is known as Big Six. In this group, the poets are William Wordsworth, S.T. Coleridge, John Keats, Lord Byron, P.B. Shelley, and William Blake. Romanticism emphasizes the individual, the subjective, the irrational, the imaginative, the personal, spontaneous, or the emotional, the visionary, and the transcendental. It is called the Romantic era. Romantic period is called Romantic era because the moment reviewed the Romanesque and Gothic of medieval times to support the belief that the goodness of human nature can only be restored by imitation what they viewed as a more primitive time. Romantic writers and painters use the sublime to evoke responses in their audience. Romanticism had four basic principles: the original unity of man and nature in a golden age, the subsequent separation of man from nature and the fragmentation of human faculties, the interpretability of the history of universe in human, spiritual terms, and the possibilities of salvation through the contemplation. It is generally supposed that the English Romantic movement began in 1798 with the publication of lyrical ballads, but It is not a sudden outburst, but the result of long and gradual growth and development. The term romanticism, that is the romantic movement, is a literary movement which took place in Britain throughout Europe roughly between 1770 to 1848. Politically, it was inspired by the revolution in America and France. Emotionally, it was expressed as an extreme assertion of the self and the value, the individual experiences, and extreme assertion of the self and value, the transcendental. The stylistic keyword of romanticism is intensity, and its watchword is imagination. In Britain, romantic writers of the first generation included Wordsworth and Coleridge, Blake and Burns. Through introspective 18th century poets such as Gray and Cooper show pre-romantic tendencies. The second generation of British romantics, Byron, Shelley and Keats, observed these influences, wrote swiftly, traveled widely and died prematurely. Their life stories and letters became almost as important for romanticism as their poetry. Romanticism does not mean any one of these things or any characteristics. It is in fact a collective term to mean certain features and characteristics, such as mysticism, humanism, supernaturalism, escapism, love of beauty, love of nature, love of equality, alienation, fanciful, melancholy, wonder, emotional intensity, rich imagination, subjectivism, simple diction, sensuousness, love for medievalism, etc. It wanted to free literature from tyranny of the rules of the ancients. English Romanticism is both a revolt and revival. It is revolt against 18th century tradition, conventions. It is revival of the medievalism and old English myths and masters of poetry. All romantic literature is subjective. It is an expression of the inner urges of the soul of the artist. The poet gives free expression to his feelings, emotions, experiences, thoughts, and ideas, and does not care for rules and regulation. The emphasis is laid on inspiration and intuition. The romantic poetry carries us away from the suffocating atmosphere of cities into the fresh company of the out of the door world. All poets were lovers of nature and looked at the beautiful aspects of nature. To them, nature was friend to lover, mother, sister, and a teacher. Shelley intellectualizes nature, and Keats is content to observe nature through his senses. Romantic poetry is the spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings. Romantic poetry is a spontaneous overflow of powerful feeling. This one is the definition given by William Wordsworth. Poetry is a romantic poets is not a craft by inspiration. The poet does not care for the perfection of form or clarity of expression. Most of the romantic poets in English are full of melancholy and pessimism. A romantic is dissatisfied individual. He may be dissatisfied with the circumstances of his own, with his age, with literary convention and tradition of the day, or with the general fate of humanity. Romanticism was a revival of medievalism. The romantic is extraordinarily alive to the wonder, mystery, and beauty of the universe. The unseen world is more real for him than a world of the senses. Romantic poetry is a mystical and is removed from the everyday experiences of life. Romantic movement in literature is a revolt. It was a revolt against 18th century poets, styles, artificiality. The romantic poet laid emphasis on imagination and emotion. The 18th century neoclassical poets had emphasized on reason and intellect. There are many angles and points of views from which one can study romantic poetry. The most of the important characteristics of this form of poetry is imagination. The different characteristics of romantic poetry are elaborated. In the words of William Wordsworth, poetry is the first and last of all knowledge. The phenomena of imagination is the essence of core of romantic poetry. According to romantic poets, it is possible to attain a transcendental experience by means of imagination. It takes up to near to the spiritual truth. When it comes to romantic poetry, reason and logic take a back seat. The one thing which rules the world of romanticism is emotion. Romantic poetry is one of the best means to let loose one's emotion through words. The overflow of emotions depicted through romantic poetry transcends the boundaries of logical reasoning. Spontaneity in romantic poetry arises from an emotional overflow and something pains in the inspiration. A romantic poet can let loose his imagination in the process of interpreting natural phenomena. It is said that romantic poetry associated with the nature is a kind of meditative process. The rationalists tend to view or associate nature with some kind of machine. A romanticist perception of nature is that of an organic phenomena. Nature is also viewed as a setting or a place which offers respite from the artificial world that we inhabit. The pastoral life, the cultural and traditions are mentioned on frequent basis on romantic poetry. In most cases, the relaxed and slow-paced pastoral life of shepherds is depicted in these poems. Romantic poetry employs this feature in order to present before readers the complexities of life in a simple manner. Contrasting features of country and urban life can also be depicted by the portrayal of pastoral life. It is the way of expressing so much in so little. The use of symbolism in literature allows to infer, derive in different meaning from a single expression. Symbolism rouses the curiosity of readers and also adds a kind of enigma to expression. This one is the information of romantic poetry, where the romantic poetry began in the 1798 by producing the lyrical ballad by William Wordsworth and S.T. Coleridge. Then after, the many poets like P.B. Shelley, John Keats, Byron here had produced number of poems, and these romantic poets were like to go in the company of nature. They like the pastoral life, they like the nature, they like the imagination, emotions. These things are here again and again in one way or the other way are expressed as per as the study of the romantic poetry is considered, where it is artistic, literary, musical, intellectual movement originated in Europe. With this, I conclude romantic poetry. Okay, thank you. Good day.